Alrighty, good evening, everybody. We are back. We are back for our 8 p.m. Tropics talk, and I'm gonna fight through this for you guys. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I'm getting the living daylights beat out of me right now. But you know what? We're gonna fight through it. We're gonna get through it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get into Tropical Storm Tammy. She is out there. She is among us. She is our next official named storm. We finally seen it pop up, and it's still headed due west at this time, due west towards our leeward windward islands. Let's say hello to everybody in the chat. Can't miss everybody here. Let's see, who do we got? Who do we got in here so far? I see Carmen. Good evening, Carmen. Daniel, welcome in. Good to see you, buddy. Thank you for joining in, despite everything that you have going on. I hope you're making a speedy recovery or still recovering, feeling much better these days. If you guys see me using this microfiber, I'm wiping tears from my eyes, so I apologize. This is why my segments have been so short-lived. It's such a bummer, but dang, because there's so much I want to talk to you guys about. But we'll give some folks a few minutes to join in. I want to get as many of our Lesser Antilles folks, U.S., British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, anybody out there who wants to join in tonight. We're going to go island by island because I see everybody out there read National Hurricane Center stuff, but we're really not talking about what it is that we're going to expect, and I want to get ahead of the game this time because there were a lot of things that happened with Philippe that took us off guard, especially with him moving the way that he did. But here she is. You can see that we have a tremendous amount of shear still to the north. You could see a nice anti-cyclone just to the north and northeast of this system with some pretty good indications that that's also a bit of troughing working its way down. Look at all that open cell cumulus working its way in towards the extreme northeastern quadrant of the satellite shot. And you can see that it's trying to help suppress some of the outflow with this storm. So, I mean, it's going to try to get going. It's going to try to continue to consolidate. Notice how we saw really good consolidation over the last 24 hours. We finally got that really good spin. And once that spin started up, all those thunderstorms finally pulled in towards the center. That's all that it takes, guys. I mean, once these things start to rotate, it's kind of like clockwork from there. Everything else just kind of goes about its own business and it does its own thing. So yeah, we definitely want to watch how this deepens. We're going to look at all of our new high-res model data and see what they have in store for us. I've got all my notes here for everybody out there watching. And to tell you the truth, what it looks like is Martinique north through the U.S. British Virgin Islands are going to see the impacts directly associated with Tammy. To the south of Martinique, St. Lucia, Vincent, Barbados, the Grenadine Islands, Trinidad, Tobago, you guys could possibly see some residual banding with it. Definitely going to be residual banding with it. That's what we're going to have to deal with. Because, I mean, you look at the satellite image. I don't know why my Epic pen always closes out. It should always be ready to rock. There it is. Okay. You see the satellite image, and I like using these zoomed out perspectives because you get a good idea of exactly what it is that we're dealing with. And you can see that there is some banding associated with this feature and another tropical wave, even remnants of Sean floating around right in through there. It's very hard to blink and you'll miss it, and it's already getting sucked into our next system out there. But we have all this convective banding to the northwest, and then you have all this stuff getting drawn in from the ITZZ off the south side of it. So it's not an expansive storm by any means necessary, but it's definitely still going to pack a bit of a punch. And for those of you watching right now, especially in my windward islands down there, you're not going to see a direct hit from this. You're not going to take a lot of the brunt of the tropical storm force conditions. However, when you get into some of those stronger bands and the thunderstorms out there that are trying to form up, especially along its southern periphery, that's where you're going to start to see some of those higher gusty conditions. You'll definitely see a lot more of that frequent lightning that we saw with Philippe. Oh, God, excuse me. And we'll definitely end up seeing those tropical storm-like gusts because as you go through time and get into that southern base of it, that's when all that moisture and all that increased, I guess, inflow, you could call it, getting drawn into the center is what's going to help to force those feeder bands up into your area. Trinidad watching, welcome in. Hot tea with a shot of whiskey. Dr. Roberts, you know what, Robert, I just might do that. That sounds like it would definitely wipe out my sinuses. Definitely. It's been rough, honestly, guys. Like, it's very bizarre too, because during the daytime I'll feel better. After a quick workout I'll feel better, and then all of a sudden it just hits even harder. Like, no kidding, within the last hour and a half, my whole head, like, I have so much sinus pressure underneath this eye, this ear is clogged up, and this whole side of my head just feels like somebody punched it and now it's swelling up. And it's so uncomfortable, and it's making my eyes water at this point. Hi, Nazar, I see became a tropical storm already. Helena, yeah, it did. Unfortunately, today I had to shoot my video a little bit earlier, so I couldn't see the 5 o'clock update because I try to do, it's rough sometimes. I do all this weather stuff and I do all my note-taking while at the same time, and I hope no one's watching this right now, but at the same time I'm working my actual full-time job simultaneously, so I kind of like sprout 3 different heads. 1 and then 2 and then 3. So that way I'm focusing on my work, focusing on watching the weather, and then I have another one focusing on writing down and doodling what it is I'm going to be talking about. So that's why sometimes, guys, if my videos come out and there's already new information, I apologize. It's just because sometimes my most convenient time of the day, where I have about maybe an extra 20, 30 minutes to sit down and get in front of a camera, that's when I can actually upload and do my full segments here. Sometimes that's why I lean on my live videos a little bit more to update everything as we go throughout the day. But it looks like definitely from the northern portions of what we would classify as our windward islands, from Martinique, Dominica, Guadeloupe, Antigua, Barbuda, further northward, that's where we're going to see a large majority of our more sustained winds. And it looks like starting Friday midnight, so Thursday night, Friday midnight, is going to be when we start to see conditions really go downhill. Some of the halves models want to slow it down. It's very interesting. I'll show you that here in a second. But based off of what I've been looking at, and I've been digesting all the different models, the Icon has been doing very good with this. The Icon has been very good. The Canadian model and the GFS are actually fully on board with this west-northwest track now. We have a lot of good consistency across our models, although the GFS still has its moments where it wants to blow up for some reason. The H-Wharf is still trying to blow this thing up into a Category 2. I can show you that real quick. There you go. This is Saturday. This weekend, we have a 975 millibar low. Looks like right off the coast of Dominica, Guadeloupe, and yeah. Then Antigua further to the north. Oh, that was my humidifier. I was like, what the heck's knocking? So I don't trust this. I definitely don't think this is exactly what we're going to see unfold. I don't think we're going to see some rapid intensification out of this. Our halves A and B models are definitely not pinging on it either. We could see some deepening as we go through time, and it looks like these models want to slow it down a little bit. We could see maybe Friday night into very early Saturday morning is when most of those significant conditions are going to come down on you. This is the one that I've been leaning on. Oh, here's my icon. Here we go. This is the one that I've been leaning on. Since day one, Icon... Wow, guys, I got to say, I'm sorry. I sound horrible right now. I sound disgusting. Here, excuse me real quick. Dear God, wow. I'm definitely sorry about this, but I wasn't going to let you down. I bailed out on Sunday. I'm not bailing out today. We got to work through this. But anyways, Icon has been doing very good. We have all of our fresh 18 Zulu data in, and you can see that we are expecting a little bit of strengthening, just a little bit, marginal, riding the backside of that high pressure out there. And the Icon is looking like, here's 8 p.m., 9 p.m. you guys' time, just to the east of your location. Then we go forward to midnight. There's midnight. Then that would be 3 a.m., 6 a.m., 9 a.m., and this is definitely Atlantic Standard Time. For those of you tuning in out there from the islands, we're looking at Atlantic Standard Time right now. I'm converting the Universal Time 12 Zulu to your actual AST out there. I know you're one, if I believe I'm not mistaken, you are 1 hour ahead of us EST time, or Eastern Standard Time. So your 0Z and your 12Z would be 9 o'clock a.m. for 12 Zulu, and then 9 o'clock p.m. for 0Z. So this is what we're looking at, 9 a.m. on Friday morning. You could possibly have that tropical storm right overhead as we get through the backs, or as we get into sunrise Friday morning. That's going to be right over top. It looks like Guadeloupe, just to the north, or no, just to the north of Dominica, I believe that is. Yeah, Antigua and Barbuda are definitely getting the strongest of the winds. That's what's very interesting about this storm, and honestly, this website here does a much better job of it. Let me see if I can get us closer. Here we go. So as you can see, we have a lot more winds. This is a very north side loaded system. And the reason that is, if we go back to our satellite here, I'll pause it at the very tail end of it too. Right here we go, where we get the true color. Okay, so let's do some synoptic analysis here. We have a high pressure right here rotating around like so. If you can imagine that the lines I'm drawing right now are going to be your isobars. So as these winds rotate around this high that's trying to push a little bit further to the south, and you have that jet influence outlining it in the upper levels, that's where we're getting all this wind shear from right through here. There's a big chunk of wind shear. You can see it in that cirrus blow-off right there. What's happening is, and I'll change my color as well, what's happening is we don't have a very strong system. It's not a very strong, let alone organized tropical storm. I mean, if you look at it, we have another Philippe almost on our hands. Maybe not as disorganized as he was, but a lot of the thunderstorm activity is getting around the center, but it's still a lot more of an east and southeastward loaded system. The winds are only to the north because you have the interaction between this going on around the center of circulation like so. So what I have drawn, excuse me, I'm crossing the beams. I'm crossing the lines on the south. But anyways, what's going on here is you have all this pressure gradient interaction in through here. And that's why that's where a lot of your strongest winds are going to be. So as this propagates to the west and northwest, a lot of the strongest sustained winds are going to be to the north of this system. So wherever this low pressure center tracks, you're actually not going to see a ton of the influence from it unless you're seeing that pressure gradient interaction from that massive high pressure out over the central and eastern Atlantic. And the storm itself. You can see it here. I don't even have to draw it anymore. You can see all these isobars right in through here. There's our 1023 high right there, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different isobars, 7 technically. 7 different changes in your pressure gradient. What you have right here going on is more so a pressure gradient force wind event is what we used to call it in Air Force weather. You have surface-based wind events, and then you have upper level or momentum transfer wind events where upper level winds will translate down to the surface. And we're going to see a mixture of tropical storm winds near the center, especially when you're in the thunderstorms. But at the same time, you're also seeing that very strong high pressure out there amplifying all the winds to the north of it. Like I said, on this model here, you get a much better representation of it. If you imagine there's our high center. So as those isobars wrap around the high like so, and then you begin to mix into the isobars of our low pressure, our tropical storm, all in through those areas. I'll use my yellow ink. We used to call this boxology. I'm not sure if Mr. Castle's going to join us, but we have boxology going on. We usually call this boxology with temperature discontinuity or advection, moving temperatures, like cold or warm air advection. But in this case, same principle applies. I'm going to use that example here because with the interaction between the high and that low pressure is going to be what's causing a lot of the winds with this storm. And it's crazy too because if you look where it tracks, you're going to see thunderstorms, yes, but in terms of your gusty winds and your sustained winds, a lot of the islands to the south of where Martinique and Dominica are, depending on how far to the north or south this wobbles, you're almost not going to see anything. Like, don't get me wrong, in terms of winds, actual sustained winds with this storm, you're not really going to see a whole lot. The thunderstorms, on the other hand, because of the structuring of this tropical system, that's what's going to help play a role in creating a lot more of our widespread impacts. You go towards the tail end of it, and you try to extrapolate this out. Let me get my pen again. So if it holds its current course and moves in like so, that's generally right about there is going to be our track for our thunderstorm activity. You know what? I'm not going to be stupid like that. Let me get rid of those lines. There we go. That's going to be where our thunderstorm swath is particularly. We could probably see some little feeder appendages happen on the outside of this, especially with that cold-warm interaction between this warm core system and that extensive high pressure out here, because you can see that high pressure has wiped everything out. You have some very, very faint low-level cloud cover out there, but for the most part, that is a very dense high out here spinning around, helping to suppress anything from going on. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a front right in through there somewhere because you could see a clear delineation. Here's your warm air, and then here's your modified whatever air right there to the north. So we have a very interesting situation. It's definitely a bona fide tropical system. I'm not going to argue that. It's just it's not in a very, very, very open range, favorable environment for it to blow up and continue to do all this stuff, you know? Let me get back to the chat. I apologize. Let's see. Do you think we'll be able to land around 2 p.m. on Friday in St. Lucia? 2 p.m. on Friday in St. Lucia. You know, that's going to be a tough call because looking at the wind field and the pressure gradient around this storm, it's not going to be too bad. It's going to be the thunderstorms you'll have to watch out for. The thunderstorms and the banding around this storm is what's going to give everybody a little taste of Tammy. I know that sounds weird. That's not a joke for the internet to enjoy. But in terms of the storm itself, a lot of the consistent, sustained impacts are going to be to its north. So depending on, I can't really see on this satellite loop. Let's go right through here. So this is 21Z tomorrow. There's 9 p.m. tomorrow. We're still off to the east. Midnight, 3 a.m., 6 a.m., 9 a.m. So around sunrise, 9 to lunchtime tomorrow for you guys out there in the Leeward Islands. That's when you're finally going to realize a lot of those sustained tropical storm force winds. Or at least I should say, according to the ICON model, and I put a lot of faith into this one. It's done very well with this system since the day we saw it form up off of Africa. It looks like we're measuring out winds anywhere between 24 to about 29 knots. So high-end tropical depression, low-end tropical storm force winds, depending on if we get a little more oomph out of this system as we go over the next day and a half. It doesn't look like it. The models are honestly, they want to weaken it fast. I've noticed this trend with a lot of them. You can see as soon as we get landfall through those islands, you start to see it begin to lose that pressure gradient force winds, and then it really starts to get pulled in and sheared apart by our massive nor'easter system just off the northern portion of the chart here. And then, I hate to switch gears really quick, but you look upstream, and here's that tropical wave right there that could potentially interact with that big old system that's going to form up. We'll talk about that here momentarily, but I definitely want to make sure that we're covered down out there in the islands. Let's switch over to the Euro and start looking case by case up close. Let's see. Central America, Caribbean. Let's look at precipitation. Let's go total precipitation. Let's see. So as we go through time, it looks like the hardest stuff is going to start Friday night. Actually, you know what's crazy is the Euro actually does not. So this is going to be a tough one. We're going to have to watch this closely and look at what it looks like on satellite because the Euro right now has a lot of the hardest rain staying offshore most of the Leeward Islands. It looks like Barbuda and Antigua could see the most of the rainfall out of this, somewhere around 2.5 inches, but a good chunk of most of the Lesser Antilles, especially as you get into the windward segment of it. It looks like maybe we could see half an inch to an inch of rain, which I know in the grand scheme is enough to create very decent localized flooding out there, but, I mean, you know, I'm not trying to downplay it, but at the same time, I don't want to go full send life-threatening, you know? Like, we just had Philippe out there. This isn't you guys' first rodeo. We've been talking about this for a little over a week now, so we know it's out there. We know it's coming, so let's hope that we have our flood preparation and prevention plans in place. Let's hope that for those of you who were directly impacted by Philippe, continue to keep those countermeasures up, because that's really what this is going to be. It's going to be another one of those flood and rainmakers. This isn't going to be anything catastrophic in terms of storm surge or high wave heights. We could see some increased swells because of the interaction between that dense high pressure and the tropical storm getting closer and increasing that pressure gradient force, but it's not like we're going to see really bad inundation into the islands because of the storm surge in particular. It's just not going to be deep enough for that. So I find it very interesting that the Euro doesn't really have a whole lot, at least initially. In fact, it looks like rain chances go up for a little bit of everybody out there as that next wave begins to push in, because you're looking at where that heaviest precip is. Right here is where your storm is just about. And this is already not late in the day, excuse me. This is about 9 a.m. on Saturday. And then finally, once we get into Sunday and into Monday morning, that's when we start to see rain chances increase quite a bit for everybody out there. Pardon me, I'm sorry about that. Let's see what that is exactly. So there's our system, and then, yeah, you get that. See, so that I can also see what's happening there. So unfortunately, what's going to also be a killer with this, well, excuse me, I may not say that, but what's also going to be unfortunate with this system is once we get through the actual center, that high pressure is going to lend us no favors, because as you can see, we have the high here, so we have winds rotating around it out of the east, and all that intertropical convergence zone moisture and the tail end of this is essentially going to converge right over those islands like so. So you're going to have all that surface converging air that's helping to keep those lines of storms, those lines of rainfall directly over that island chain, almost exactly following the orientation of the islands as well. So that's why the model is picking up on increased rain chances even after the storm is gone. Yeah, you can see that until the frontal system can really evacuate Tammy, we're going to see a lot of that trailing moisture left behind stay over top you guys. And then eventually it'll translate over to the U.S., British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and so on. And then while we're here, I'll make a note of this, but if you guys check this out, we get towards the back end of the run. Look at how that temperature discontinuity really goes off the chain. Look at that, right in through there. We have a massive change between our modified polar air, our MP air, maritime polar air, or I should say at this point, this is more continental polar air, excuse me, and then we have our maritime tropical air down here moving this way, air coming in like this. That's what's going to help to really induce our spin, because you have winds doing this, and then you have winds doing this, so right in through there, and I'm very glad that the Euro has not backed off of this, because you go through time right where I have that L drawn, and bam, take a look at that. We get a nice big old storm system that starts to brew up atop all the islands. So I would almost argue, for those of you watching in the Lesser Antilles, for those of you tuning in Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, the Virgin Islands out there, we may not want to watch Tammy as hard as we want to watch this, just because Tammy's going to give us that initial wave of a couple inches of rain, and before we can get a lot of that rainfall out of the system of the soil, the ground, the leftover standing water, we could have a big, expansive, slow-moving upper low, surface low pressure forming up right over top that area, and you can see that the precip with that is far more immense. In fact, let's go back to our precip totals chart and take a look at that real quick. Let's see, where are we? Total precip. Here we go. So there's our first run, and then let's see once that system, oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, everybody's going to get a lot of rainfall. Like you can see that for places like Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, even Jamaica, Cuba, some of the Bahama Islands out there, they're looking at maybe between a quarter of an inch to half an inch of rain. And then once that big old low kicks off, everybody is seeing accumulation of over easily 2 inches. So that, I think, that could be the lethal aspect of it, in my opinion. That could be the lethal aspect of it. We'll go over to 500 millibar heights. We'll change the AOI so we can see it. We'll go, North America might be a little too far. Yeah, no, let's not do that. Ooh, my headache's coming back on. Let's go tropical Atlantic. So this is what we've been tracking on Weather Center for a little bit now. Make sure you find time to relax. Yes, ma'am. That's definitely what I'm going to do after this for sure. I am Tropical Storm Tammy, and I will become a Cat 5 hurricane and destroy the island. Daniel, what is going on right now? Don't say that. I know it's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare, but like, shucks, homie. Like, where's that coming from? Push through this. You got this. I appreciate you, Griffin, Scrooge, McDuck. I'm going to hit you back with a dab real quick. Hope you feel better as soon as possible, Nazario. So do I, trust me, because this stinks. I can't work out. And I like hydrating. I love all my different drinks. If I'm still feeling the same way Friday, I'm not going to be able to enjoy whatever it is I'm drinking with you guys. Trinidad and Tobago, praying for you to feel better. Well, I hope we get some rain. Oh, yeah, Darnell. First of all, thank you very much. Thank you so much for your words of encouragement and your prayers. I definitely need that. I want to flush this out of my system fast. And trust me, I've been doing all sorts of different things. For the last, 36 hours, I've been doing the Zicam things up my nostrils to try to clear it out. Been hitting the emergency, the vitamin C, my multivitamins, nasal decongestants. I got my humidifier. It's been blasting all day with the Vicks vapors in it. So, I'm trying. I just got to let it take its course by now. It's not a whole lot of sinus congestion. It's more of a runny nose, and it's all up in my head, which makes it even worse. Honestly, at this point, I'd rather sound like this versus have it all up here just throbbing out of my forehead. But all right, this is what we really want to start paying attention to because it's definitely been trending on the Euro. It's been fairly consistent with it right now, and I definitely buy into it. Here's our 72-hour mark. So 72 hours from now, we're going to be on the backside of Tammy. So we're still probably going to be seeing thunderstorms and feeder bands along the southern base of it. But that very extensive trough out there over the northeast and the mid-Atlantic states is what's going to grab her and hopefully kick her out to see if she can organize a little bit more. We're going to have to see exactly what happens with this high height center here because I am noticing some of the models want to keep this further to the north, and there are a couple tracks that want to do this. We have lost the agreement on the ensembles for the Euro to suggest that we could see a westward track with it. Let's go ahead and take a look and see if they've updated on here yet. No, we're still at 18Z. We're still at 18Z, but this is what I was talking about just now, guys. We're seeing a few different of the models going off west. It's not a 50-50 split. It's more of like that 30-70 split once again. General consensus still is out to sea with that trough, but there are a few, ironically, that still want to take it through. So, just looking at this, anywhere from Barbados, St. Lucia, and further north, you guys should be prepared to take a direct hit. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying you should be prepared in the event that this does continue a little further to the west and you do take a direct hit from it. Because with the way this storm is structured, those little jogs are going to play a huge role in it. If it was a symmetrical storm, or God forbid an actual hurricane to where we had an even storm system all the way around, then the impacts would be generally the same. But because of the structuring of this, any jog to the north or any jog to the south is going to make a very vast difference with it. And right now, what I'm putting my money on is between 9 p.m. Thursday and then midnight Friday is when you'll start to finally see those conditions go downhill for you guys out there. That's Atlantic Standard Time. 9 p.m. to midnight going into Friday. So tomorrow night, Thursday into Friday is when you'll start to see the initial swath of it begin to influence your weather. And then from there on out until about maybe middle of the day Saturday is when you'll be in the worst of it. And please don't be alarmed. I'm going to tell you that right now. For those of you all tuning in, I don't have my live count up. How many people do we have in here right now? All right, we have 143 people watching. I'll take it. For those of you watching now live, and for those of you who will be tuning in later to watch this segment, please don't panic. Don't fall for some of the folks out there who are genuinely hyping this up, because I've seen it. I'm not going to name anybody out there. I'm not going to put anyone on blast. I'm going to keep it professional. But all I want to say is, that's why I'm coming in and doing this detailed live stream trying to talk you through this, because it's going to be mainly a rainmaker. We're going to have the potential flood conditions, and that's it. We're not going to see anything else crazier with this. Ironically speaking, as weird as this might sound to some of you watching, I'm glad it's panning out this way, because if you had talked to me or we were doing this live stream bracing for what we were predicting last week, this would be a totally different story. I would be hyping this up, and I'd be saying, we got to take shelter, you got to get underground, you got to do whatever it takes. But in this case, we're doing okay. We still have to watch as it approaches, because it does look a lot more impressive than it did 24 hours ago, so our models may want to try to adjust for that. This is our 18Z intensity guidance, and it's been very consistent that it will remain a tropical storm, with a few of them trying to reach Category 1 strength. The kicker to that is, if it strengthens more, we're going to see more of a northward push with it. That's guaranteed because of the synoptic setup near it. I just realized, look at this guy. What the heck? So we go from a tropical storm, we weaken down to basically nothing for a 12-hour period, and then all of a sudden the storm goes, whoa, hey, we're going major hurricane. So ignore that, definitely. So we could definitely take this chart and leave it right in between here, the Cat 1 all the way down to low-end tropical storm. And the median of these ensemble products, or of these, I should say, of this guidance, is right in through here. So we're definitely looking at a mid to maybe low high end. I know that sounds weird. We'll say like a 60, 70 mile an hour tropical storm. 70 might be pushing it. We'll see. I'm thinking 60, 65 mile an hour based off of what I see here is what the agreement is, at least during the time that you guys out there in the Lesser Antilles will be most under the gun for bad weather. Does anybody in here have any questions for me? Does anybody have any specifics? What's the probability for St. Lucia? Probability for what, Arnold? Probability for rain, winds, what do you mean? Like, or impact? Hey, y'all, Spider Gwench, welcome in. They do suck. It's been a rough one, but all good. Thank you. Headaches suck, my dude, especially head cold headaches. Stay hydrated. That helps tons. Yeah, I'm definitely trying my best. And yes, Dark Earth, I have one rocking and rolling right behind me. My humidifier is going. Prayers to you, buddy. Do you think Florida will get some storms? We'll definitely see some storms here in the future. It's really going to depend, first of all, on whether or not that big old cyclone thing, is what I'm going to call it for now, gets going in the Caribbean, central western portions of the Atlantic. We'll talk about that here in a moment. We are already 30 minutes deep into the live stream. Wow. How's it looking for, forgive me if I start doing weird things, I'm trying to keep the pain away. How's it looking for Trinidad and Tobago? So, Sherry, good question. You guys are going to be on the weaker side of the storm unless it suddenly takes a real southern dip, which I don't anticipate is going to happen. You guys are definitely going to be on the weaker side. You're definitely going to have your thunderstorms, your feeder bands rolling through there. You're going to have the isolated instances, of tropical storm-like conditions because of those feeder bands working their way through. That's going to be your primary threat. That's going to be the big thing for you guys down there, is watching those bands. So if you have a radar entity or a way to look at radar and satellite, definitely have that up and running for you, at least during periods of the day starting Friday. Rain and impact. So a direct hit, it's looking fairly low right now. Rain, you're definitely going to see rain, anywhere between 1 inch to 1.5 inches of rain out there, especially with those stronger feeder bands. Did you get your knowledge of weather from the military? Carol, good question. Very off-the-cuff question, but I attribute a lot of my knowledge to my time in the military, not necessarily because of the training, but because of the experience. Oh, and I got to tone it down. I gotta start talking a little quieter because my head's definitely getting going. But before the military, I would check out books and do a whole lot of extensive research online and read a whole bunch of different article sources. And then once I got access to the internet, I definitely started looking at a lot more online stuff and just reading and looking at storms, researching history behind storms, and so on and so forth. But then where it really made the most impact for me was in the military, all the experience I had. And I had a lot of wonderful mentors during my time in the military, and I give them all the credit. I give them all the thanks, because I definitely wouldn't recognize what is going on in the big picture and be able to translate it down to you guys to the lower level. And when I say lower level, I mean you guys. I mean, like, look at the big picture of the weather and then be able to hone in on, like, specific islands or explain the interaction from a large scale to a small scale. I know you guys have been picking up what I've been putting down, which is great. But yeah, to answer your question, Carol, I had a little bit of knowledge going in, but then it was because of my time in the trenches, doing the forecasting, doing the chart analysis. It was mainly just the on-the-job experience that really took it to new heights, and I started to recognize things and just put it together. Pattern recognition, putting the puzzle pieces together. Will Tammy pass on the western, eastern side of Antigua? It looks like it's going to be the west for now, just looking at what our high-res data suggests. And what that'll do is put you guys in that swath of tropical storm-sustained winds. So we're definitely going to keep an eye on that. What's up, Gabriel? Thanks for joining, buddy. Good to see you, bro. You're doing great, Naz, despite not feeling your best. I'm genuinely trying my best right now. I can promise you that. And I'm not trying to be dramatic either. I'm struggling right now. And I can't take any more painkillers because I've already had, I think, like 2 of them today, and I'm not big on Tylenol. In St. Croix, we are going to get hit by a hurricane. At least as far as I can tell, Marta, no, you're not going to get hit by a hurricane. Virgin Islands, Jane, very good question. Virgin Islands are going to be the last to get it. Let me see. Have it all written down right here. So Virgin Islands, tropical storm impacts rolling through the backside of Friday into Saturday. So in the afternoon to the evening time Friday is when you guys are going to start seeing conditions just continue downhill, and then they'll start to improve as you get through the day on Saturday. Will the storm slow down? I'm very interested to see that myself. I don't see why it would, because we have something up ahead of it trying to pick it up and scoot it out of there. But our halves models want to slow it down just a little, not too much. Halves models are definitely, halves models are doing something weird with it, as a matter of fact. This has it going right into Puerto Rico. So we're definitely going to have to investigate that a little bit further. Virgin Islands, I'm going to stand true to what I said, though. Friday into Saturday is when you guys are going to start seeing the worst of your impacts, unless something big changes with all this reconnaissance data that we're getting in. This is the 18Z halves A, and I don't like the fact that this model has it hanging out until Monday. Look at the timestamp. That's October 23rd, Monday. What does National Hurricane Center have? Yeah, see, they're expecting it to be long gone by the time we're in the afternoon on Sunday, excuse me. Now, definitely don't trust it, but don't fixate solely on where that S label is. That's why I wanted to jump in here and start giving you a play-by-play, because you got to remember those winds and those thunderstorms are going to be very expansive around this storm. So even though it says the center could be there 2 p.m. Saturday, it could be sometime around the lunch hour. If not, 9 a.m. is when you guys start seeing the worst of the impacts up there near Saba, St. Kitts, Nevis, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, anywhere to the north of where that S is. That's where a lot of our main sustained tropical storm impacts are going to be with this storm. I've been taking medicine for cancer and it sucks so bad. I can imagine, dude. I can imagine. Definitely, like Zenful said, sending you hugs. I'll send you like my COVID-style hug with a face mask on. Will Florida see something? We're going to, we'll go ahead and start transitioning over to that. I think we've covered our bases. The main threat, to recap, is going to be the rainfall. The rainfall is going to be the primary threat with this bad boy rolling through. We could see a little bit of wind damage, loose items unsecured outside, coastal impacts with the winds coming on shore with that pressure gradient force we talked about earlier. We can't rule out winds altogether. It just, because of the weird orientation of the wind field around this storm, they're going to be more interspersed than they will be consolidated around the center itself. So the number one priority here is watching your radar and being cognizant of when the rain is going to come in and when you have your stronger storms working their way overhead. I can't recommend enough that if you do have something out there on a mobile device, on a computer, on a TV, if you can stream it there, if you can get in front of a satellite or a radar image, that'll be your best friend, because we here in the States or anywhere else who provide you with the weather content, we're either going to shoot out a video or two, and we can only live stream for so long, unfortunately. So you definitely want to have that live data in your hand, because the flood threat is going to be the big one. The flood threat that could trigger other things is going to be the big one. Winds, not so much. I don't think we're going to see tornadic activity, so that's for sure. And the storm surge is going to be negligible with this, just because of the, the characteristics of the storm. Hispanic mom mode is kicking in. I want to help you get better. I appreciate that, Darker. Thank you. Alfalfa Bill Enjoy, do you think we'll be in a La Nina next year for hurricane season? Do you think sea surface temps will be as warm next year? So Alfalfa, great question, because you know what, dude? Behind the scenes, I'm not going to advertise it, but what I want to do is, as we go through El Nino, I really want to internally for you guys next hurricane season, especially if, Lord willing, we're all still here, we're still doing the segments and all that. I want to do my own little internal case study. And it's going to take a lot of work. I'm still trying to iron out exactly what it is or how I want to run it. But I want to try to go back in time and see when it was we suddenly saw the spike in sea surface temps this year, and see if there was any correlation between when El Nino started to fire up, or if it's just an abnormal increase in temperatures across the board at a certain period of time, if there was no stimulus to encourage it. But that's one piece of the puzzle. I also want to keep close to me the MEI index, or the oscillating index, to determine what our temperatures are doing and if we go back and forth from an El Nino to a La Nina, because I do believe the last time I looked at the charts, by March, I think March or maybe even February, March to maybe April is when we're going to see that El Nino really suddenly trend down, and we may be back into a neutral phase as we get started with the hurricane season next year. I need to research exactly how I can pull that up. Let me get a sticky note so we can digest that on Friday. I don't need this. Pardon me, guys. I'm just going to make a note real quick. Oh, I should probably move the mic. I'm over here sniffling in you guys' ears. El Nino long range for Friday Tropics talk. Because, even though we're going to be wrapping up tropical season, there's no harm in looking ahead, because with as erroneous as this year has been, yes, we did have El Nino working with us. We had those strong storms out there. We had those hot temperatures out there, but El Nino still did us a favor to an extent and helped keep a lot of these storms doing exactly the same thing we see Tammy doing here. I mean, we've seen this a number of times already. Philippe did this. Rena did it. Technically, Sean did it. He just didn't hold together, but Sean did it. Lee did it. Nigel did it. Margot did it. Just about the entire Don did it. Like, everybody did it. We only had Idalia, who formed up, unfortunately, too close to just wander out to sea. And Harold as well. Harold, again, formed way too close to home and ended up working his way through Texas. So in reality, we had a very busy season for what it was supposed to be. It's just we had so many out there taking advantage of the hot conditions in the greater Atlantic, that main development region, and because of the structuring of the way El Nino had our jets, the troughs, the high pressure systems out there, and then just the fact that we had systems going through the Atlantic in rapid succession, it kept that channel open for these things to just keep going up and up and up and up and up. So it's going to be very interesting to see if we go back into a neutral phase next year and just kind of let the hurricane season do its thing. That's when it could get very interesting, especially if we do have these hot temperatures. We won't have as much shear. We'll have to see what the African dust does out there as well, because that was a big weather player for us through June and the beginning of August this year. Thank you for the updates. Every day I watch you. Every day when there is a storm. I live in Puerto Rico, gone through some major hurricanes. Live you. Get well. Catalina. Oh, well, thank you very much, Catalina. Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate that. Still here working for you guys. And again, I'm not being dramatic. I'm just, I'm not going to use this little head cold as an excuse to bow out, especially when we have something coming at you. We should make a map with lows being plotted this month through December. We can have an idea what next year will be like. It's a good idea. I definitely agree. And yeah, I don't know about La Nina. I think La Nina is a little premature for 2024. Maybe into 25, we could see it try to come back, or at least start to trend towards La Nina. But I agree with you, PM. Next year will be either a weak or a neutral El Nino. Definitely. I think we'll get out of this strong to or moderate to strong El Nino and see more of a neutral phase, which is still kind of crazy. Because, I mean, with the hot temperatures out there, if El Nino backs down, the Caribbean is going to be open for business. We didn't see very much of that this year, but I remember past years we usually see that freight train coming off of Africa and just moving in. So, it's not time to recap just yet. It's not the end of the season, but, we still have Tammy on the horizon. We could have maybe one more storm, maybe. Nothing on the models indicate another tropical system for the next 2 weeks into November, but, we got lucky this year. We did. And, a lot of us weather content creators, even me just getting started a little over 2 months ago, took a lot of heat broadcasting on a lot of these storms, just going out to sea. But I'd much rather report on that and try to hype, fish storms versus constantly having to mention how, another hurricane for the Lesser Antilles, another hurricane for Puerto Rico, another hurricane for the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, another hurricane for Florida or the Gulf Coast, that's when it gets bad. Like, if I'm being real with you guys, if I'm being brutally, gritty, honest, it's great for views. It's great for views and subscribers. If there's bad stuff out there, bad news is what gets the views. And I just made that up. Bars. I just made that up. Bad news gets the views. But it's true. I mean, think about, the old World Star, videos or clips you'd see online. You never want to see a video on World Star of somebody buying a candy bar. No, World Star is usually when someone's beating the living daylights out of somebody or trying to shoot somebody. It's just the nature of the beast. And in this case, I'd rather take the heat from broadcasting on storms that only affect a lesser part of, the big picture versus like 5 different Idalias. Like imagine if we were reporting on a 2004 or a 2005 hurricane season where everybody was just getting hit. Everybody was getting hit. Because, don't forget, we talk about how in 04 and 05 we had major hurricanes for the Southeast, but we can't forget about you guys out there in the Caribbean. Jamaica got wrecked. Cayman Islands, Cuba, the Yucatan, the Lesser Antilles when they were coming through. Like everybody in those bad hurricane seasons got hit hard. So this year we got lucky. We had El Nino keeping things out. We had a really nice, aggressive upper air pattern keeping things away. And unfortunately, the Lesser Antilles and Bermuda, in some of the cases there, saw a little bit of the action more than everybody else. But, we're only going to get lucky for so long. And like I said, it's great for the subs. It's great for the views. All of our channels across the board will have so much to hype. We'll have so many life-threatening this, flooding this, and catastrophic. We'll have all of that. But, like, the other piece of that is when it's true and we have to report on it, it gets very sad for the people who are out there, especially for the islands. Here in the greater United States, we'll get hit and the coast will get wrecked, but as you get further inland and, you can evacuate, it's not so bad. But the islands out there, when you have these storms just blowing and blowing and blowing, ready to make that mainland U.S. landfall, that's when it's miserable. It's a rough experience. And you know what? Like, I'll report on these storms all day, and you can best believe that I'll definitely report on those major systems if and when they pop up, And I'm going to keep it as realistic as possible. Chris Anderson, hey man, just tune in again. How's St. Lucia looking at 2 p.m. on Friday when we land? Chris Anderson, St. Lucia at 2 p.m. on Friday. It's going to be a close call. It's definitely going to be a close call. The National Hurricane Center keeps it to your north, so you'll definitely have some thunderstorm action to do battle with. But in terms of our actual sustained tropical storm conditions, they're going to be off to the north and the northeast of that center of circulation. Canada had more tropical action than Florida. Yeah, Robert. Yeah, that puts it into perspectives. You're not wrong. We really have got lucky this year. Yeah, and that's another thing too. That's why, and somebody commented on one of my videos saying how I supposedly yell and get all upset about people hyping storms, but that's why when it's time to trend it down, when it's time to rein it in, stop advertising all this stuff and all this propaganda, I'm not afraid to say we got to calm down a little bit because it could be far worse. We're seeing a landfall, we're seeing a tropical storm, but one of my videos on Thursday last week said Cat 4. So when it's time to dial it back, you got to dial it back. If you take a hit in the views, if you take a hit in the subscriber base, at least you're being real. At least you're being honest. The subscribers who do stick around because you're not reporting on anything newsworthy, they'll know, I can trust in this person. I can trust in this source. And that's why I'm not afraid to say it's not that bad or it is going to be bad. This year was not a good year. Idalia messed up our coast in certain places. Crystal River got hit by this, but see, again, I got to disagree with you. PM. I'm sorry. I have to. It wasn't a good year. We dodged all the bullets, but let's play this out. Idalia was a Cat 3. We had Michael, Cat 5. Apples to oranges comparison with a singular storm. I go back to 2004 because we had Ivan, Francis, Jean, Bonnie, Charlie, and then Ivan again. This was a good year. I use that loosely. We still had impacts. We still had bad weather. I think the winter is going to be what the Southeast has to really grin and bear through. The winter may be a little bit more intense for us than the hurricane season, at least in the Southeast. We'll definitely have to watch closely. We are strong when a Cat 3 storm hits the West Coast directly. That would be a bad year. Michael was a 4. I thought Michael was a Cat 5. I've read everywhere that it was a Cat 5 when it came in with 160-mile-an-hour winds. Barbara, right there. We are lucky in Puerto Rico because after Maria in 2017, exactly. At the end of the day, it's hard. It really is. I could be upsetting a lot of people out there right now by saying it's a good year or we got lucky because you specifically may not have been so lucky. And I know that there's some collateral damage out there, and there's unfortunately going to be people in this situation who do see floodwaters, who do see damage, who do see very intense situations because of this tropical storm. I mean, it's not a joke, but in the broad perspective, when you really take a look at the June to November, the end of November hurricane season, when you take inventory and you see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 storms that, we realize, okay, whoosh, a lot of us dodged a bullet. A lot of us definitely got lucky. And unfortunately, some people definitely saw the impacts of some storms. Idalia could have been a lot worse. Idalia, if the situation was right, could have been another Ian, another. Why am I suddenly losing another Katrina, another Rita, another Ivan? Even Idalia. When I'm not gonna get too intense with it, but you guys know what I'm saying. This year is going to set the tone for next. I agree. 2024 maybe more stronger and worse. Herman, please stay safe and informed about the weather. I agree, Marta. Very good. Hope Cayman doesn't get hit this season. Thank you for the update. We're watching. Cayman's best right now. What I'm looking out for is when that big old low storm system gets going. It still looks very reminiscent of when we had Nicole suddenly spawn in November last year. Same dynamics, same frontal train off the coastline of the United States, big bubble of cold air coming down, and then some very weak tropical vortices coming in from the south that could just get wrapped up in there. And then again, we go back to the hot temperatures and the fact we're going to be underneath a ridge. It's not going to be that unfavorable for something to form up, something, non-tropical or subtropical. And, I'm looking at the time. We got 9 minutes till. We'll finish up with that. So this is what's next on the Weather Center radar, guys, and we're just going to continue to report on this day by day and see what happens. But you see how we go to a bit more of a zonal pattern. We have very low amplitude features, very low ridge, very weak trough, low ridge, and then a stronger trough, the one that created our nor'easter system over here. We have a more meridional pattern out over Europe right now. So Thomas, if you're out there watching, shout out to you. Or if you're tuning in at another time, I'm watching for you guys down the road because we could have a more amplified pattern out there across parts of Europe, the UK, Spain, Portugal out there. You're going to get what the Northeast is currently doing battle with right now. But then check this out. This is definitely very interesting. Look at this breakaway. You see that leftover cold air right here. I know this is 500 millibars, but there's a very weak low amplitude trough right there. And what that's showing is after that nor'easter had worked through, we have all that leftover continental polar air modifying into maritime tropical, modified polar, maritime polar, because it's over the ocean water at this point between the mid-latitudes and the tropical area. And then you watch as we go towards the very end and look at this huge cold pocket that breaks off. And the reason that's bad, on the surface, it's like, well, it's an upper low. It's an upper low. What's wrong with that? It's not a hurricane. We're going to go right back into our sea surface temperatures. You guys remember Ophelia? Ophelia was a smaller scale version of this. When you have such potent, cooler air from the upper latitudes break off and sink as far south as this wants to do, you're going to have a very, very stark difference between what that bubbling air mass is and what the general source region is like. You have all those ocean heat temps, or the ocean heat content is still through the roof there. We have our hot sea surface temps. And then you have this modified dome of cool air going right over top of it. That's going to be a whole pocket of just really bad turbulent mixing. Cold air is going to sink. The warm air is going to rise up to replace it. So that whole area could see some really good thunderstorm and rainfall activity. And if you look, because we're underneath that broad amplitude ridge, there's nothing steering it. You see it come down, and it has only one direction to go, and that's west. So, this next trough is what I'm a little afraid of, because if that ridge holds true and this thing can get out over the Gulf as that trough comes in, then it'll definitely take whatever's left of it and swing it up. So we'll see. Well, that's what I'm watching for next. I'm not going into tropical realm yet. I'm definitely not going into tropical realm yet because I got to slow it down. My head's hurting. But I'm not going into tropical realm yet because you look at our probabilities and, there really isn't anything indicating that we could see something tropical out of it. What I'm very interested to see is the fact that there's something on the Euro's radar here. Something on the Euro's radar here and here. Because that big cold dome is already going to be parked down there at this point. So we already have that giant low spinning out there at this point in the run. So what I'm very curious to see is what happens down here and what happens down here. Because if we have that interaction, I'm not saying we'll see development, but it could just be an organized mess of chaos. Because you have all that modified polar air marinating over the upper Caribbean, the Western Atlantic, the Bahamas, and then you have tropical energy getting pulled into it. It's like a smorgasbord. You have like a small little bubble of all different types of air masses out there. So if this goes further west, what will it do? That's the kicker. We don't know yet. It could just turn into what looks to be a tropical upper tropospheric trough, or it could acquire that characteristic because it dropped down out of the mid-latitudes into the tropics. With this tropical moisture coming into it, that's how we got Nicole last year. Nicole was the situation, and I looked at all the different synoptic charts. Nicole was an instance to where we had very, very strong polar air right through there. I'll use my blue pen. We had very strong polar air out here. So all of this was just really intense. We had a front come through, bona fide polar high pressure and a frontal system. And then we had a very weak tropical wave doing this, kind of like what Tammy's doing right now. And the stark contrast between all our warm tropical moisture doing this, butting up against it like so, creating all that turbulent mixing right along the edge of it. And then what happens is you get that vorticity from above to come down and start making things spin, and anything's possible. Anything's possible. Let's go ahead and see let's see if our GFS ensembles have come in, because I know it's about that time. Yep, there we go. All right, let's see. 36 hours out. There's Tammy. Perfect. So yeah, I mean, nothing tropical out there. It looks like the GFS is kind of hinting at those same areas down and through here and down there that the Euro probabilities are kind of alluding to. So right down in there and right down in there. I'm not too overly concerned with development. I'm more concerned with what happens once that big old bubble of cold air comes down, how that decides to work together. That's going to be the big thing. If I missed any questions, I apologize. Are you at or are you almost at 100% feel? Daniel, I wish, dude, but right now it's like the headaches. It's definitely the headaches and the runny nose. Remember years ago, Hurricane Hugo, Cat 5 destroyed the whole island? Yeah, Hurricane Hugo was a huge, I'm not trying to be funny, but yeah, Hurricane Hugo, another great example. I don't count unconfirmed wind measurement at an empty beach. PCB got hit by 150 mile an hour winds like Ian last year. It was Cat 4. I know people who went through it. I mean, either way, though, I mean, that's much stronger than a lot of people were yelling at us for broadcasting for Idalia. A lot of people were mad that we were saying it was a Cat 3. Some folks were saying, like you were saying, PM, the report was 90 mile an hour. It was a Cat 1, and, we got yelled at for that. So imagine if you saw reported winds of 150 right below Cat 5, high-end Cat 4 like that, that's... It's a big, you got to take a look at the huge unbiased perspective. Hope Tammy don't go down too south and hit St. Lucia. It would have to go way further south, Henisha, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name, but with the storm structuring, it would have to go way down to the south, and you can see even on our ensembles right here that the general trend is going to be west-northwest. Windward Islands are not going to see much more outside of it than the thunderstorm activity and the rainfall. You're going to have the winds being induced by the thunderstorms, of course, but in terms of like consistent tropical storm full-on impacts, that's all going to be the north of the center. Daniel, have a good night, buddy. Have a good night. We'll talk to you very soon. We'll see you Friday night. Hopefully we'll all be feeling better by then, and we can really hype up and have some fun Friday night. Winter could intense for the Christmas in the Caribbean. We can see higher than average rainfall in Jamaica and the Northern Caribbean. Gale force winds are likely. I agree, Aston. Definitely. That's one thing we got to watch out for. I lost my job and half my house and Ian things were shut down, and I couldn't even get a new job until a month afterwards. Wow, Brooke, I'm sorry about that. And see, that's the thing. Like, you have those localized instances of catastrophic damage and just life-changing events. And, in that isolated instance, absolutely horrible. Like, I genuinely feel for you hearing that. That's terrible. Because in comparison to what happened here, it was almost like nothing happened besides flooding when Ian came through. Because he moved so slow and he could weaken as he went over the Florida Peninsula. But then you bring it back and you open up the microscope and you look at the one storm Idalia and a little bit of Harvey, I guess, and a little bit of Ophelia. But imagine if we had 4 or 5 Ians in different places. You look at the big picture and it's like, dang, that's bad. When you bring it down to the one instance, it only takes one, of course, but it's all a matter of perspective. I'm not going to get too in-depth with it, but it's all a matter of perspective. They do, definitely, Elite Chief Stark. That drawing home, interesting how it turned out. Yeah, right? What to expect from Tropical Storm Tammy for Barbados as well as for St. Kitts and Nevis. I came to Barbados for work and is leaving for St. Kitts on Friday. Would it be safe to travel? What time on Friday, Watson? What time on Friday? The old slingshot move, yes. Do you think Tammy could go west? It could. It definitely could. Let's go ahead and let's see if we have 0Z data in here yet. Let's see if we still have any deterministic models. There we go. So, yeah, we still have, there's the HAFS B. The HAFS B takes it into the Caribbean. So, this storm isn't making it easy. This storm definitely is not making it easy. I'm going to close these out and reopen them, see if maybe we can get some farther. Nope, we can't. That's not what I want. Not Norma. Norma's a bad situation out there, though, too, but it looks like it's going to weaken before it goes inland. Let's go back to Tammy. Let's see, HAFS A, track it through. There's our islands. So we're looking at who is that? Yeah, that's Martinique. That's Martinique right there. We have Dominica, and then, yeah, okay. So we're looking at a possible Martinique landfall here. Moving through the islands. Keeping those impacts overhead and then going towards the British, U.S. Virgin Islands, and then Puerto Rico. So that's interesting. The HAFS A model wants to take it right through Puerto Rico. Let's see what the HAFS B says. Oh, here we go. We have HAFS B parent. Okay, good. I like to see it from a far distance so we can see what's going on here. So, very interesting. Very interesting, though. Look at what the HAFS B wants it to do. HAFS B wants it going into the Dominican Republic, although it's not going to be anything. There's no really closed low out there. So, very interesting. Huh. I might have to revise this forecast. All right. We're definitely going to have to watch this one. Definitely going to have to watch this one. So, I have a feeling these models are not really wanting to intensify it, though. I think that's also what it has to do with it. Yeah, see, so for the first 72 hours, we're looking at good old tropical storm and then maybe skirting the intensity of Category 1 once it's away from you guys out there. And then beyond that point, it'll just weaken down. So yeah, those are my two big heavy hitters for now. And obviously, we're looking at that potential severe weather outbreak for us here in the United States. Because, I mean, it goes without saying, you switch over to the CONUS view, and this is how we'll wrap up. Like, Halloween is looking very sporty for some people out there. And I'm hoping that front does do what it's supposed to do right here and dries out, because I'm not trying to have bad weather for Halloween. There's no way in heck I want to dress up as Michael Myers and not sweat bullets or have to worry about rain in that costume. Handy Mandy, there's no saying just yet. I'm departing Barbados at 10:40 a.m. Arrive in St. Kitts at 12 p.m. That's going to be a close call, Watson. Very close call. By about the lunch hour on Friday is when the worst could be settling in. But if it's to your north, because you'll still be fairly down to the south in Barbados. If you're going up to St. Kitts around that time, though, you're going to get into the worst of it as you travel north. So I would almost recommend hold off for another 24 hours and let's see what happens before you go making finalized travel plans. And also definitely pay close attention to National Hurricane Center. They are the official source here. I'm just giving you the best advice that I can based off of what I'm seeing. But Handy Mandy, definitely not out of the realm of possibility from what we're seeing on Halves A and B. But it's really going to depend on a lot of variables, how strong it gets, if it decides to move north, when our nor'easter kicks off, if that high pressure can stop influencing it, because we have a strong dominant high out there. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. And I know I've been advertising that for a few days now. But then anyways, you look here, and just before Halloween time, we have a very, very strong cold punch that's going to come straight out of the Rockies. 1034 high. We're bringing down some really, really good polar air. 522, 528 line is right there, so we're definitely going to see a lot of snowfall with this. Let me switch over to the rain, snow. But yeah, there you go. Seeing some good snowfall out of that system. And a little bit on the one before that, too. So some very pungent cold plunges coming for us as we get closer to Halloween. And then you look at GFS, and GFS still has something popping up out there. Like, I know it's long-range GFS, but just take a look right there. We'll switch the region just in case. So, I mean, typically we don't want to trust what GFS says, but, you know, it's late. But GFS also has that low building up out there. Let me see at 500 geopotential heights if it's the same thing. Yeah, that's still the same thing that gets going out there. There's that breakaway area of jet. And then it hangs out down there. And it starts moving to the west. So we'll have to watch. You need to rest after 9 p.m. I agree. I know. Yeah, it's time. It's 9:07. Under travel storm. We need rain. Models are wrong. There will be a big storm system. Heavy rain late October. Looking forward to it. Just no tornadoes. Category 5 Isaac with 109 miles. Yeah. Barbados. How many inches of rain expected? Between 1 to 2 inches. That's for sure. It could be higher than that, but right now we're looking for Barbados down to the south. We're looking at roughly 1, maybe 2 inches for now. We'll have to see how things adjust as we get closer. Watson, God will keep you safe. You arrive safely. Okay, have faith in God. He will keep. Yes, I agree, Marta. Definitely agree. Read NHC discussion section about rainfall. All right, will do. Warm welcome from Island Barbados. Peter, welcome in. I live in Oklahoma and I'm curious about the serious weather potential. So welcome in, yeah. Later down the road, we'll go to the Euro this time to take a look at that. And then I got to get going, guys. We'll wrap up. I definitely want to go hit the shower and get some rest. But as we go, this is 18Z. I want 12Z. As we get closer to the 26th, same time, we're waiting to see if that thing travels down out of the northern latitudes into the Caribbean. But there you go. We have all that tropical moisture from Norma out there that's going to interact with our next frontal system and come through. And yeah, Oklahoma could definitely get it big time. There's the first wave interacting with all that tropical equatorial moisture coming out of the Gulf, all that good return flow on the backside of the high. And then we have our next frontal system really coming out of the Rockies. That's going to be a big one. We'll have to watch that one. And then there you have it. Look at that. This could maybe pick this up. Ooh, so we'll see. There you have it, though, guys. Very interesting situation right here on October 28th. Easily severe weather in the Midwest, Great Plains, from Kansas, Missouri, down to Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle. Lots of snowfall for the Rockies, Wyoming, Montana will probably get a lot. Same with Idaho. Could see some snowfall at higher terrain in Utah, too. I mean, look at that cold plunge. That's the That's the 522 thickness line. So yeah, that's bona fide. That's like true definitive polar air right there. And then you look at the bottom right hand of the chart, and we're definitely seeing some bad weather down there in the southeast if that upper low begins to wander through and modify over those hot waters. So lots to keep an eye on. Definitely lots to keep an eye on. But yes, Nick, to answer your question, anywhere between the 26th and forward, as you can see here, watch out for some bad weather out there in Oklahoma. Hope you feel better. Thank you for looking out for us. Absolutely, Nancy. It's a pleasure for you guys. Always fun. 2 more will finish. I hope that second system your Halloween won't be that severe, or won't. I'm not too sure. I think there's a typo in there. But anyways, Aod Fenzum. What about Jamaica? So in the short term, Jamaica's looking pretty good. You're probably seeing some thunderstorm action with that formation of aggressive thunderstorms out there in the west and central Caribbean, but in terms of actual low pressures, it's not going to be until about the 26th time when we get that cold pocket coming down and starting to modify and make a mess that we could start to see some thunderstorm chances really go up for sure for everybody down there. Puerto Rico, the Lesser Antilles could see a little bit from it depending on where it comes together and how far it decides to park itself to the south. But yeah, forgive me. I'm going to go ahead and punch out from here, guys, though. If you please, it's no problem at all. I'm going to go, as soon as I get done here and shower, I'm probably going to get started on them, but leave me a comment somewhere. Leave me a comment either on this live stream or leave me a comment in my my main video that I put out today. It was very short. I'm sorry. It sounded like I was good on camera, but my head was freaking struggling that whole video, and I had no energy. So that's why I made it so fast. I wanted to save up what I had left in the tank for this. Are you almost at 100%? You know, I would say I'm like 85, 90%. Do you think we will finish the hurricane season names and go to the second? Right now, Ethan, it doesn't look like it. At least from what I'm seeing up until Halloween, I don't see anything definitively tropical out there. I think we'll still have Vince and Whitney on reserve. We'll see. CPC has those areas of favorable environment for development. So, I mean, you just got to wait and see. But right now, it doesn't seem like it. But definitely leave me a comment. I will always get back to you guys. I even get back to the negative comments. That's how dedicated I am to just writing back and interacting with everybody. I'll write back to the negative comments and just say something, I apologize, or respectfully, or, but leave me a comment if you have any additional questions, and I will always get back to you. I can promise you that. That is a guarantee. I will write back, and I'll do some research in the background, and, excuse me, I'm sorry, and write back to you for sure. So if you have any additional questions, if I have anybody joining in from the Lesser Antilles or even the Greater Antilles, Puerto Rico, further westward, joining with questions, anybody who has questions about the Great Plains and even the Rockies, just hit me up with everything you got, and I'll definitely get back to you guys. Where's the high pressure at this point? Let's see. So, I mean, just looking at the satellite, I got to zoom out a little bit. Looking at the satellite, oh, you're killing me, Tropical Tidbits. Come on. You're killing me. Are you getting sick now too, Tropical Tidbits? Anyways, high is still well to the north of it. No, still over to the north and the east of our center of circulation. What a shame. Come on. What is going on? Let's go. Here we go. This will work. If it loads, there you have it. So we'll go to the tail end. There you go. Do a quick little synoptic analysis. Here's our big old nor'easter system getting ready to come through. Actually, you know what? All right, I'll obsess about that at a later time. But here's all that energy that's going to get our nor'easter going right in through there. Here's Tammy, and then here's our massive high pressure right there. So, I mean, it still looks like it could make a run to the northwest right there, depending on what this thing does. So yeah, we'll see. Do you know about a system forming in the West Caribbean? Nothing right now. I mean, I actually haven't looked at ensembles. And then I swear I got to stop getting distracted. You guys are distracting me. I got to go. Let's look at our good old Canadian ensembles just for the heck of it, because we saw GFS earlier, and there were a couple little things highlighted out there. Canadian ensembles, big old blob right there going towards Florida, another big blob. But you know what? It's been doing that on and off for a while now, and there's nothing on the deterministic model, so you know, we'll see what happens. We get some stuff forming on the deterministic model, but I don't think the ensembles in this case are really taking into consideration how much high pressure. There, look at that, actually. As a matter of fact, look at that. There it is again on a Canadian model. Big old low pressure starting to get going there too. So we have good agreement. Have a lot of good agreement out there that there's something going to bloom up out there in the just to the north of our Antilles. This, however, has this front coming down, and then as this tries to push west, it'll probably evacuate to the north quicker because of that frontal system. But all right, folks, I do apologize if I skip over your questions. Kevin, welcome in. I see ya. Unfortunately, I am still, but we're trying. I didn't want to leave you guys hanging tonight. Again, I'm going to echo the same sentiments. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I apologize for my very thickly sound, but we got it done. We took care of you guys, and we had a good time nonetheless. Any additional comments that you have, please write me in the comments section of this live, of my main video, or if you don't have me on there, WXCenter_Nazario on Instagram, and shoot me a private message, and we can talk whether and I can answer your questions as we go further in time. Kathy Ann, yes, Barbados is looking mainly just at rainfall right now, mainly just some aggressive banding, thunderstorm activity, and rain because of all the convection blooming around the storm, but most of the actual substantial winds are going to be to the north of it. But all right, guys, definitely write me if you need anything else. I'm right here, unless I'm knocked out. Then I apologize. I'll get back to you first thing in the morning, but we'll talk very soon. Prayers for you to feel better soon, Nazario. This is Carmen signing out. Go to bed. Rest your weatherman. Thank you very much, Carmen. Always a joy to see you in here. Always a joy. So we could see heavy rainfall and strong winds with that strong polar vortex. Historical rainfall impact Caribbean late October and November. I'm watching this Southern Caribbean with that. I wouldn't say strong winds, but we could definitely see some heavy rainfall from it. That's for sure. That's for sure. Very heavy rainfall. We'll have to wait and see. It's still far out, but I'm liking the consistency. I'm liking the dynamics. It makes sense. Thermodynamically and structurally, we can see it. So we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it on Friday. If I'm feeling a lot better, we can spend some more time on it as well. And, you know, Tammy will hopefully be doing its thing by that point, so we don't have to fixate on there. We don't have to... Almost started coughing again. We don't have to fixate on it too much. But all right, guys, please, again, if I'm cutting you off, leave me a comment. I promise I'll write you back, okay? I got to go ahead and end the stream before it gets any later so I can get in the shower and get to bed because it's going to be another early rise tomorrow. But all righty, folks. We'll see you tomorrow for our next full 6 p.m. segment of Weather Center Nazario. We'll hopefully get everything tied down into a nice knot, and we'll have a better idea of what Tropical Storm Tammy is going to do, as well as if we get some new information on what that upper-low cyclone is going to be doing out there, and especially as we can see a little further in time what it is expected to do, because right now we have good developmental chances out there across models. You see it here on the Canadian, you see it on the GFS, you see it definitely on the Euro, so we'll just have to wait and see because it's closer to Halloween, and I don't want to rush the rest of this month. It's been flying already. Tomorrow's already the 19th, so we'll see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. We'll see you Friday for our 6 p.m. segment and our Tropics Talk, our Hype Night Tropics Talk on Friday. Everybody, have a great night. Thank you all for the positive words of encouragement, and thank you for the positive energy that's going to help me get through this bug faster than ever. We'll see you very soon. And thank you, whoever dropped the donation in the $3.49. I'm so sorry I glazed right over it. I was talking. Thank you very, very sincerely. I appreciate that so much. You have no idea. No idea. But all right, guys. We'll see you very soon. Be well. God bless each and every one of you and your families, of course. And for those of you out there in the Antilles, just keep up with it. stay safe, and you can best believe that not only here on Weather Central Nazario, but a lot of other folks out there are going to be talking about it. They'll have eyes on it, so we all have your backs. It goes without saying. So we'll see you soon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Weather Central Nazario, signing out.